My name is Clara James. I'm 59 years old. And I spent most of my life believing that love was enough to hold a family together. I thought that if I gave everything to my only child, he would never let me fall. 3 years ago, I stood at my son's front door with a birthday cake in my hands. 3 layers. Chocolate with buttercream frosting. His favorite since he was 7. I had spent the morning stirring, piping the roses just the way he liked. I hummed the same lullaby I used to sing when he was too scared to fall asleep. I didn't care that my back hurt or that my fingers were stiff from arthritis. I just wanted to show him I still remembered. That I still cared. He opened the door. Already annoyed. His eyes scanned the box in my hands like it was an insult. I smiled anyway, holding it out like peace. "Happy birthday," I said. "It's chocolate. The one you always asked for." He didn't even pretend to be grateful. His voice was flat. "Mom, we've talked about this. You're 2 months behind on rent. A cake doesn't fix that." The words dropped like stones between us. He blinked, stunned, then tried to find something kind to say. "I just thought we could sit down. Maybe talk. It's your birthday." He laughed. Not a warm laugh. The kind that sounds like glass shattering. "My birthday? You think a cake makes up for being a deadbeat tenant, Jesus?" "Mom, you think I'm still 12? I stood there on the porch. Frozen. I had lived in that house for 32 years. I had raised him in those walls. Cooked him thousands of meals. Packed his lunches. Paid for college. Worked double shifts when his father walked out. But that day, I was nothing more than an overdue bill to him. I said I'd pay. I lied. The disability check had been cut again. The grocery store had let me go. Said I moved too slow for their image. Medicare didn't cover half the treatment I needed. But I still said I'd pay. Just give me some time. He stepped closer. I smelled cologne and something underneath it. Anger? Contempt. "You've been bleeding me dry for 2 years. Do you know what people say when they find out I'm still supporting my mother? It's embarrassing. Regional sales manager. Golf club member. Company car. Designer clothes." He had all of it. Everything I had sacrificed for. And now I was the shame he carried. "I raised you," I said. Quiet. Not begging. Just remembering. "I raised you alone. I took out loans for your tuition. I skipped meals so you wouldn't have to. I loved you so much it scared me. Gratitude has limits. Mom, I have a life now. A wedding to plan. Lisa doesn't want me supporting someone who can't support herself." He paused. "It's not my problem anymore." And then, just like that, he spit. The shock of it hit harder than the wet slap on my cheek. His face didn't even look like my son's anymore. The boy I used to hold when he had nightmares was gone. "You're nobody to me," he said. The door slammed shut. I heard the deadbolt turn. I had taught him to use that lock when he was 8 and afraid of strangers. Now he used it to keep me out. I didn't know how long I stood there. The cake box trembled in my hands. The roses I had piped with care were crushed against the cardboard. My cheeks stung. From the spit. From the shame. Eventually, I walked to the curb and sat down. The sidewalk was cold, and my pants were too thin for the weather. I opened the box slowly. The frosting had smeared, but the words were still legible. Happy 32nd. Ryan. Love always. Mom. What a joke. I picked at the edge of the cake with my fingers. Took a bite. It was perfect. Moist? Rich. Just enough vanilla. I had nailed it. But what good was perfection when the person you made it for thought you were garbage? Cars passed. People I had known for years glanced at me and kept driving. The woman who used to wave when I mowed the lawn. The man who borrowed my ladder one summer and never gave it back. None of them stopped. I used to host block parties on this street. Halloween potlucks. Christmas cookie exchanges. Now I was the crazy woman on the curb with a ruined cake. I looked through the kitchen window. Just for a second. I could see the place where I taught Ryan to ride his bike. The patch where we planted tomatoes every spring. He used to laugh when I let him stomp in the mud. He used to bring me dandelions in sticky little fists. I wanted to believe he was still that boy somewhere deep down. But I couldn't. Not after today. I didn't cry right away. It took a while for the tears to come. When they did, they soaked through the cake box. The chocolate smudged onto my lap. Eventually, the sun began to set. The sky turned the same color as the roses on his cake. Soft, muted pink. I stared at it until it blurred. Until it felt like I could disappear into it. I wasn't a mother anymore. I wasn't anything. Not to him. Not to this street. Not to anyone. All I had left was the sidewalk and the cake I made for someone who no longer saw me as human. The next morning, I found myself at the door of a downtown shelter with a backpack and a cake box that smelled like sadness. They gave me a cot between a woman who muttered to herself and another who didn't speak at all. The ceiling leaked when it rained. The bathroom had no lock. But it was warm. And no one asked too many questions. At first, I expected someone to come looking for me. Maybe Ryan would call. Maybe Lisa would feel guilty. No one did. A week passed. Then 2. Eventually, I stopped checking my phone. I stopped expecting. There's a skill to being invisible. It starts with keeping your eyes low and your voice softer. You learn to fold your body into corners, to take up less space. You learn when to line up early for food. And when it's better to wait, so the aggressive ones don't push past you. You learn how to disappear inside yourself. The people around me all had stories. Some lost jobs. Some lost spouses. Others just lost everything at once. But no one wanted to talk about the before. The shelter wasn't a place for stories. It was a place for surviving. Every day looked the same. Free coffee in the morning. A shared bathroom with flickering lights. I started to count things just to stay sane. How many steps to the bus stop? How many spoons left in the communal kitchen? How many hours I could sit at the library without getting kicked out? The worst part wasn't the hunger or the cold. It was waking up and forgetting where I was for a split second. That moment where I thought I was still in my house. That I'd hear Ryan in the kitchen. And then it would hit me again. I was no one's mother anymore. No one's neighbor. Just another older woman in a shelter with too many bags and too few options. I stopped telling people my name unless I had to. I stopped using words like used to. Used to have a job. Used to own a home. Used to matter. At night, I curled up on the cot with my coat over my shoulders and stared at the wall until sleep found me. Some women cried. Some yelled in their dreams. I just stayed quiet. By the end of the month, I could walk through the streets and barely leave a trace. People stepped around me like I was part of the sidewalk. The bus drivers stopped looking at my face. Clerks pretended not to notice when I used food stamps. I became background. That's what happens when the world decides you're no longer useful. You learn to stop making noise. You learn to survive on silence. And still, somehow, a part of me kept hoping something would change. It happened on a Thursday morning at a McDonald's. I had ordered the cheapest coffee on the menu and was stretching it as far as I could. I sat in a corner booth, using the free Wi-Fi to scroll job listings I knew I wasn't qualified for. My hair was unwashed. My coat smelled like the shelter. I hadn't looked anyone in the eye in days. 2 women sat in the booth behind me, talking louder than they realized. One of them said her mother's caregiver had just walked out without notice. Left her alone for 6 hours. The other woman called it disgraceful. People these days had no commitment. I didn't mean to speak. The words came out before I could stop them. Are you talking about elderly care? They turned around. One looked me up and down. I probably looked like someone asking for change. I told them I had experience. Years caring for my own mother before she passed. I knew how to lift. How to bathe. How to calm a person during long, painful nights. She wrote down a number. Mrs. Evelyn Carter. Riverside neighborhood. Call if you're serious. That afternoon, I stood outside a weathered house with chipped paint and ceramic pots lining the steps. The flowers were wilting, but someone had watered them recently. It wasn't beautiful, but it felt cared for, like someone was still trying. Mrs. Carter was 91, sharp as a nail, but arthritis had bent her fingers and a stroke had slowed her walk. Her voice still carried power. She studied me the way a teacher might study a student. "You don't look like the others," she said. "They always have somewhere else they'd rather be." "You?" I said. I didn't have anywhere else. I regretted it instantly. But she smiled. "Good. Maybe we'll get along." The job paid almost nothing. But it came with something more valuable than money. It came with walls. A real bed. A door I could close behind me. For the first time in months, I had privacy. Space to breathe. The room she gave me had rosebud wallpaper and a twin bed that felt like luxury. I brought in everything I owned. 2 trash bags of clothes, a toothbrush, and a photo of Ryan I still couldn't throw away. That first night, I cried. Not because I was sad, because I finally felt safe. I buried my face in lavender-scented pillows and let myself feel again. The weight of not having to fear the street. The relief of being behind a locked door. The work wasn't easy. Mrs. Carter's diabetes was complicated. Pills at exact times. Meals with no sugar. Blood tests. Physical therapy. Insurance forms that made my head spin. But I was good at it. I had spent years solving problems no one saw. Years anticipating someone else's needs. She noticed. "You pay attention," she said once, as I made her coffee. "You remember things? That I hate sugar. That I can't sleep with the hallway light on. That I get scared when it rains." She looked at me. "Most people just see an old woman. You see a person who happens to be old." I tucked the blanket around her like I used to do for Ryan when he was small. "Everyone deserves to be seen," I said. She asked me once if I saw myself. I looked in the mirror. Grayer than before. Thinner. Worn down. But I also saw someone who had survived. "I'm working on that," I told her. I first heard the shouting 2 months after I moved in with Mrs. Carter. It came through the thin wall that separated her house from the one next door. Angry. Bitter yelling. Something about coffee. About being useless. Then silence that felt worse than the noise. Mrs. Carter flinched. "That's Benson," she said quietly. "Takes care of his mother. She had a stroke too. Sweet woman. Used to bring me tomatoes." The yelling returned the next day. This time something crashed. A plate maybe. Then a woman's voice. Old and high and frightened. "Please. I'm sorry. Please." I paused at the window. I could see into their yard. A man mid-40s. Unshaven, dragging a wheelchair roughly across the patio. The woman inside it slumped sideways. Her head tilted awkwardly. His mouth was moving fast. His hands flailed. She looked like a doll left out in the rain. "Don't get involved." "Mrs. Carter said. "People like that don't want help. They want someone to blame." But I was already standing. I didn't think. I just moved. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was the same muscle that used to push me between Ryan and his angry father when he was too small to understand. Or maybe it was something deeper. The part of me that had lived what it felt like to be thrown away. I knocked on their back door. He answered holding a beer. It was barely 9 in the morning. "What?" I kept my voice level. "I'm Clara. I help Mrs. Carter." I heard yelling. "I thought maybe you could use support." He laughed. Or maybe it was a snarl. "I don't need some do-gooder telling me how to care for my own mother." Behind him, I saw her. Still in the chair. A bruise blooming across her arm. Her eyes wide and empty. "I'm not judging," I said. "I know how hard it is. Caregiving can break you if you're alone." He stared at me like I had said something in a foreign language. I saw something flicker. Not softness. Exactly. Just exhaustion. She pisses herself 6 times a day. She screams at night. I haven't slept in 2 years. I didn't flinch. When's the last time you had a break? He laughed again. Bitter. Break from what? No one's coming. No one cares. I looked at him. Really looked. And I saw it. The same desperation I'd worn on my own face not that long ago. What if I just came by? A few hours. Once or twice a week. Give you time to breathe. He didn't say yes. But he didn't slam the door either. And that was enough to begin. The next afternoon, I knocked again. I brought soup. Just 1 container. Still warm. Tucked in my old tote bag like an offering. Mr. Benson opened the door slower this time. He looked tired. The kind of tired that lives behind your eyes and under your skin. I said I could sit with her while he ran errands. Or napped. Or just got out for a while. He stared at me. Then stepped aside. She was more alert than I expected. Her name was Doreen. She smiled when I offered her lunch. Though her mouth trembled, she told me about her garden. About her son. Before stress hardened him. She said he was a gentle boy once. Said he used to bring her lilacs from the yard. When Mr. Benson came back, I handed him a list. Local caregiver groups. Food delivery programs. Respite services. I wasn't trying to fix everything. Just offer a rope to someone drowning. He didn't say thank you. But he didn't throw it away either. Over the next few weeks, I came by 3 times a week. Some days I just helped with bathing or lifting. Other days I sat with Doreen while he walked around the block with headphones in. Slowly, the edge in his voice softened. He cut back on drinking. Started eating more than just toast. I noticed the dishes stayed clean longer. He began attending a caregiver support group at the rec center. The first time he mentioned it, he looked almost ashamed. Like needing help made him less of a man. You saved us, he said one afternoon as I folded towels in their laundry room. I don't know what I would have done, but it wouldn't have been good. His words stuck with me. Not because they were dramatic, but because they were honest. Raw. From the version of himself he kept hidden. That night, back at Evelyn's house, I told her about it over dinner. She didn't say much. Just nodded and passed me the salt. You did something dangerous, she said later. What if he'd hurt you? Then I would have called Adult Protective Services. But sometimes people need to know they're not invisible. That someone sees what they're carrying. She looked up from her crossword. Is that what you needed back then? Maybe. I said. Or maybe I needed to become someone who sees. I started the support group 6 months later. It wasn't fancy. Just a circle of folding chairs in the back room of the community center. The lights buzzed overhead. The coffee was bad. But the stories were real. 12 people came to the first meeting. Daughters caring for fathers. Husbands caring for wives. One teenage boy helping his grandmother after school every day because his parents had left the state. Every face held the same shadow. That look people get when they've been needed so long. They forget who they used to be. I introduced myself as a caregiver and community volunteer. I didn't mention the shelter. Or Ryan. I didn't need to. What mattered was that I understood the weight they were carrying. A woman named Sarah broke the silence first. Her father had Parkinson's. She hadn't slept through the night in 3 years. She laughed as she cried. I feel like I'm disappearing, she said. A man named Benjamin nodded. His wife had ALS. He said people asked about her all the time. But no one ever asked how he was doing. The room went quiet. Then someone said, "Me too." Then someone else added, "I thought I was the only one." I didn't fix anything that night. I didn't try. I just let them speak. I listened. I made notes on what resources they might need. But mostly, I let silence hold the space when words weren't enough. Afterward, People lingered, swapped phone numbers, shared rides. One woman brought extra cookies to the next meeting, just in case someone forgot to eat that day. I watched them build each other up in small, quiet ways, and I realized this was what healing looked like. Not grand, not dramatic, just consistent, just human. I wasn't just a guest in this world anymore. I was part of something again. That night, I walked home feeling a kind of tired I hadn't felt in years. The good kind, the kind that meant I'd done something that mattered. And for the first time in a long time, I looked forward to what the next day would bring. The weeks turned into months. Word spread quietly. A nurse at the clinic mentioned me to a daughter overwhelmed by her mother's dementia. A neighbor told a cousin. Someone else passed my name to a local pastor. Before long, I was working with 3 families. Then 5. I didn't have a business card. I didn't wear scrubs. But I had something better. I showed up. I listened. I knew how to help without making people feel small. I helped one woman navigate her husband's VA benefits. Saturday with another's mother while she went to a long overdue dentist appointment. I coordinated rides to physical therapy, organized pillboxes, showed a young man how to safely lift his dad from bed to chair. None of it felt heroic. It just felt necessary. Sometimes I was paid. Sometimes I wasn't. But the value was never in the money. It was in the feeling that I mattered again. Mrs. Carter watched it all happen from her window. She never said much about it. Just occasionally nodded when someone stopped by to drop off forms or ask for advice. "You're becoming someone important," she said. One evening, as I was fixing her tea, I shook my head. "I'm becoming useful." "That's different." "Is it?" she asked, smiling faintly. "Seems to me that usefulness is just importance, without the need for applause." I didn't know what to say to that. There had been a time in my life where I gave everything and expected nothing. As a mother, that's what you did. You poured yourself out. But this was different. These people didn't use me. They thanked me. They asked how I was doing. They saw me as more than a set of hands. When I got sick one weekend, 3 different families called to check on me. One woman dropped off soup. Another offered to sit with Mrs. Carter, so I could rest. This is what partnership looks like. "Mrs. Carter said. 2 people taking care of each other." The word felt foreign in my mouth. Partnership. I had forgotten what that meant. But she was right. I wasn't just giving anymore. I was also receiving. One night, I wrote in my journal I used to survive. Now I contribute. It wasn't fancy, but it felt like a kind of truth. For years I had been erased. Now, slowly, I was reappearing. Not because someone else told me I had value, but because I had decided to believe it myself. It was a Thursday morning in October, 3 years after Ryan spit in my face and closed the door on me. I was setting up chairs at the community center, arranging the coffee cups, straightening the sign-up sheet. The room smelled like cinnamon from someone's homemade muffins. Through the window, golden leaves drifted down onto the sidewalk. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But I picked up. "Clara," the voice said. My breath caught. "It's me. Ryan." For a moment, all I could hear was the humming of the fluorescent lights above me. Then his voice again. Rougher than I remembered. "Older. I need your help." I sat down slowly in one of the plastic chairs. 3 years of silence. No birthday calls. No apologies. No letters. And now this. "What kind of help?" I asked. "Lisa left me," he said. "Took half of everything. My job's gone too. I'm being evicted. I don't know where to go." I listened. I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said. And I meant it. Not the kind of sorry that invites someone back in, but the kind that feels sad for what's been lost. He cleared his throat. "I thought maybe you could help me figure things out. You were always good at fixing things." I almost laughed. The way he said it. Like I was a tool he hadn't used in a while. What kind of help are you asking for? Ryan, a place to stay. Just for a little while. Or maybe a loan. First month's rent. You've got contacts now. Right. People who trust you. I thought of Mrs. Carter. The group at the center. The families who depended on me. The reputation I had earned piece by piece. What makes you think I would help you after what you did to me? Silence. Because you're my mother? He said. You said I was nobody to you. That was a mistake. He said. I was under pressure. I didn't mean it. You didn't just say things. Ryan. You erased me. He was quiet again. Then I know. But we can't change the past. We can only move forward. I looked around the room I had helped build. The chairs. The bulletin board. The people arriving soon who counted on me. You're right. We can't change the past. And I am moving forward. But not with you. There was a pause. Then his voice changed. So, that's it. You're just going to abandon me. I closed my eyes. The irony settled into my chest like a stone. I'm not abandoning you. I said. I'm making the same choice you made 3 years ago. I'm choosing myself over someone who treated me like I didn't matter. That's different. He snapped. You were bleeding me dry. I was sick. Ryan. I was scared. I asked my own son for help. You didn't just say no. You spat in my face and called me nothing. His voice softened. Look. I'm sorry. It worked out the way it did. But we can't change it now. We can only move forward. You say that like 3 years of rebuilding my life can just be erased? Like the nights I spent on a cot? The jobs I worked for pennies? The meals I skipped? You think saying, we can only move forward fixes that? Then what do you want? He asked. You want me to beg. I want you to understand. I said quietly. That forgiveness is not an invitation. He didn't respond. I already forgave you. Not for you. But for me? So I could breathe again. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. And it doesn't mean I owe you anything. You're my son. You were my son. The line went quiet. Will you ever forgive me? I already did. But I don't trust you. And I won't let you back into my life. I've worked too hard to build something that isn't based on guilt or obligation. So you won't help at all. I'm texting you a list of resources. Shelters. Food banks. Job placement programs. The same ones that helped me. But I won't be your bank. I won't be your lifeline. You're just like all the rest. He muttered. Pretending you care when you don't. I deleted the next text without reading it. Angry words. Old patterns. Let him choose the story he wants to tell. I had chosen mine. That afternoon, I arrived at the community center 10 minutes early. The chairs were already arranged in a loose circle. The coffee pot was brewing. Someone had brought banana bread. Someone else left a stack of donated adult diapers on the welcome table. A quiet kind of generosity that always made my chest tighten. Benjamin came in first. He smiled. Tired but genuine. Behind him, Sarah carried a binder full of insurance paperwork. Mrs. Montgomery's daughter helped another new caregiver find a seat. There was laughter. Small talk. Familiar nods. These were my people. Not bound to me by blood or promises. But by choice. By survival. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat in the chair farthest from the door. The same chair I always chose. Not because it was special, but because it gave me the best view of everyone's faces. I liked watching people settle in. Shoulders dropping. Breaths deepening. Like they could finally be real for an hour. We opened the meeting with check-ins. One man said his wife had started confusing him for her brother. A woman shared that her mother forgot who she was that morning. But remembered the dog. Everyone understood the pain inside that detail. Benjamin spoke up. You know what hurts? People think caregiving is noble. But no one wants to sit in it with you. They'll call you strong. But they won't show up when you're breaking. I nodded. I used to believe that being invisible was just the way life worked when you became a burden. But now I know it's a choice some people make about who they see. And I refuse to disappear again. We talked about burnout, about boundaries, about how to say no to family members who expected too much without offering help. We talked about grief, not the kind that comes after death, the kind that settles in when the person you love is still alive but changed forever. Someone cried. Someone laughed in a way that shook loose, something sad. By the end of the hour, numbers were exchanged. Hugs were shared. No one rushed to leave. As I stacked chairs, Benjamin lingered. "You're not like other group leaders," he said. "You don't just understand. You've been there. Experience is a hard teacher." I said, "What did it teach you? That rock bottom isn't the end. It's a foundation. If you're willing to build." I walked home under a sky soft with dusk. The streets I once wandered invisibly now felt like mine. I passed the shelter where I used to sleep, the library where I searched for jobs, the park bench where I once ate a sandwich someone left behind. I passed them all like old ghosts I no longer needed to carry. At home, Mrs. Carter was waiting in her chair by the window. Her blanket was pulled up, and her crossword was half done. "How was class?" she asked. We had talked about me going back to school. Gerontology certification. Challenging, I said. We covered elder abuse prevention. She was quiet. "Then do you ever think about him every day?" "But not the same way." "What's changed?" "I don't feel empty when I think about him anymore. I feel sad. For what he's missing. And what's he missing?" "This," I said. "Community. Purpose. The knowledge that who you are matters. Not just to someone, but to yourself." She smiled. "You've built a good life. Different from what you planned. But good." That night, I sat on my bed and opened my journal. I wrote about the day's meeting, about the new members, about the strength in their exhaustion. I wrote that healing doesn't always feel like a sunrise. Sometimes it feels like stacking chairs in a quiet room, knowing someone else will sit in them next week. I thought about the Clara who once sat on a curb with a ruined cake and a bruised heart. She had every reason to give up, but she didn't. She waited. She listened. She chose again. And now? She belonged. Not because someone let her in, because she made the space, and then she filled it.